as I launched it, I kept saying, this is the thing that I wish had always been available to me. And so kind of like, being the change that you want to see. So I hope it's the magic that helps us move forward and grow and be able to collaborate throughout the country.
Welcome to the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast, the show where you learn how to plan, build, and live the tiny lifestyle. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and today I have a returning guest who continuously brings valuable insights into the tiny house movement, Jewel Pearson. Jewel is a tiny house educator, advocate, and community leader with nearly a decade of experience living in her self-designed tiny home. She's back to talk about her latest venture, the Cooperative Communities app, which aims to make tiny house parking more accessible and safer, especially for Black and Brown tiny house owners. We'll delve into her motivation behind creating the app, its unique features, and how it can foster cooperative land purchasing and community building. Plus, you'll hear about the financial benefits for landowners and how this initiative could expand the tiny house movement's reach. Stay tuned for an enlightening conversation with Jewel Pearson. And for those of you who want to see the video demo of the app, you can head over to thetinyhouse.net/307 to see it, or just check the show notes. We'll put a link there as well. I want to tell you about something that I think will be super helpful as you plan, design, and build your tiny house. Tiny House Decisions is the guide that I wish I had when I was building my tiny house. It comes in 3 different packages to help you on your unique tiny house journey. And if you're struggling to just figure out the systems for your tiny house, like how you're going to heat it, how you're going to plumb it, what construction technique are you going to use, like SIPs or stick framing or steel framing? Tiny House Decisions will take you through all these processes systematically and help you come up with a design that works for you. Right now, I'm offering 20% off any package of Tiny House Decisions. For listeners of the show, you can head over to thetinyhouse.net/THD to learn more and use the coupon code TINY at checkout for 20% off any package. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/THD and use the coupon code TINY for 20% off. All right, I am here with Jewel Pearson. After downsizing her homes and lifestyle over the course of 10 years, Jewel designed and built a beautiful tiny house in May of 2015 that she calls home. Her home represents a desire that many have to reduce their ecological footprint and focus more on practices of less and sustainability. Jewel's a tiny house educator, advocate, and community leader, sharing her experiences, offering consulting services and workshops throughout the country to assist others in achieving their tiny living dreams. Jewel also serves as representation within the movement, focused on doing the work of changing and challenging the status quo of housing and community. Jewel Pearson, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's been a minute. Happy to be back.
Happy to have you back. This actually also might be your 3rd time on the show, so you're joining the top echelon of Tiny House Lifestyle podcast guests who have returned again and again. It means you're doing something right.
Pleased. I am pleased to be in the top echelon.
Good. Well, so today we are here because you reached out to me, I think via Instagram, to share a little preview of an app that you have developed.
That is what I've been working on. This is my new baby.
That's awesome. So if I have this correctly, it's called the Cooperative Communities app. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. It's got 2 ways to get to it. So it is cooperativecommunities.org, or also you can just use findtinyhouseparking.com. And it is that's easy. We're always looking for tiny house parking.
Yeah. And that about tells you what it's for. Too.
Absolutely.
It's good. It's a good URL.
That plus some other things. So this is something 2017, like I've been with you a couple of times to share my journey. Mm-hmm. And in 2017, when I was at the second time of having to move my house because I'd experienced issues with racism and safety issues in a rural space. First time was an RV park, and then the second time was a rural space. I had started manually connecting property owners and landowners with tiny house owners, with a focus on Black and Brown tiny house owners, so that that safety issue that I was experiencing, hopefully to be able to eliminate that for other people. There was some, educational information if folks who had property weren't aware of the challenges, ensuring that they were committed to kind of supporting what we were doing and what needed to be done, and then a matching process. And so I did that for maybe about 3 or 4 years manually with an Excel spreadsheet,
Okay.
um, going out monthly and sending emails to say, this is what we have available. If you're interested, reach out. And from that, what this concept was born, to be able to, because it became too much to manually do each month.
Mm.
And I knew it to be a need in the tiny house movement. And so I started working on developing this application that allows that facilitates the matching process a whole lot easier. And so it offers, property owners, and it could be raw land, it could be, a farm, it could be a tiny house community, it could be a campground, or a backyard urban space. For it allows property owners to come in and create a profile and list what they have available for parking,
Okay.
pictures, background details, anything that they want to include, and they can list as many properties, as they'd like. And then it also has an option for tiny house owners who are seeking parking to come in and basically do the same, create a profile. If they own a tiny house, they can, add pictures of their house, um, indicate everything that they're looking for in the space and a parking location, give some information about themselves. For future tiny house people, it offers the opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to be looking around this time frame. These are still, my desires. And I feel like that gives them an opportunity to be, in the process of building a tiny house, and kind of offset that challenge of, now I've got the house, where do I park it? And so it's for current and future tiny house owners. They can come in, property owners can search for tiny house owners can search for property owners. It's the collaboration that's there. And then in addition to those two options, it also has a community building and networking, piece of it, where
Mm-hmm.
people who want to, or maybe own land, or want to go in cooperatively and buy land with other like-minded people. If we pool our resources together, buy this land, I'd like to do this with other families maybe, or, other like-minded people. So there's a networking piece in there that allows people who are interested in doing that, or people who already have land and are looking for people that they'd like to invite on the land, to be able to connect and collaborate. And then the fourth opportunity within the site is for tiny house builders. And so think of this as kind of the tiny house builder who, it's not the large builder who doesn't need advertising. They're welcome to advertise here, but their names are out there, so they don't necessarily need
Mm-hmm.
this. But this is someone that is getting into the tiny house market, has built a few tiny houses, a local GC who's built a few tiny houses, or someone who is trying to transition into building
Mm-hmm.
tiny houses. There's an opportunity for them to go in and create a profile, share all of their credentials. If they've built tiny houses on wheels, share those pictures. And this also allows, if it's on foundation or on wheels, if they built them and they just want to share that information, they can do that as well. And they can list all of their information, and then they have obviously a dedicated, audience of people who are looking for their services.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can search for people can search for them. And then the final piece of it, the last, opportunity membership, is for, tiny houses for sale or for rent. So people who have tiny houses that they're, maybe listed on Airbnb or
Mm-hmm.
on their property, and they're looking for, longer term rentals, they can go in and advertise their tiny houses. Again, include all of the pictures, all of the details,
Mhm.
or people who are trying to sell tiny houses. And this could be for, if you have the person has the opportunity to list multiple tiny houses. So there's that opportunity there. And again, a dedicated audience of people who are looking for tiny houses. And so all of this collaboration happens within the directory. And so I feel like it's magical. It's the directory that I wish we could have had many years ago. Of
Mhm.
course, we weren't this far along in the movement, but I tried to think of all of the things that I have wanted or needed to know and put this in this one directory to make this available to the movement.
Yeah, it's a wider range of features or of kind of categories than I would have thought just going in. Because you go beyond just the, owner seeking tenants and tenants seeking owner kind of listing service. I'm curious,
Absolutely.
you mentioned that when you were doing this by hand on a spreadsheet, it was because, in a way you were vetting the both the property owners and the tiny house owners and making sure that people were friendly and good, good hosts, not racist.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so is there a vetting that goes into the directory?
So there's not a vetting, and again, my vetting is
Mm-hmm.
limited to asking a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
This is why this is necessary. These are the challenges. Do you support this? That's basically all I can ask,
Yeah.
unless I'm going out conducting interviews, and I don't want to go that deep
Right.
into it. So I
Right.
explain what the reason is for, what we're looking for. It is open to everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and the hope is that as and it's within the agreements as the person is signing up on the site. This is why this site is here, and this
Yeah.
is the reasoning behind it. And so I feel like someone who is just I think overtly is the word I'd be looking for. Overtly racist
Mm-hmm.
would be bothered by the fact that these terms are asking them to,
Yeah.
understand that this is for safety of Black and brown people. Like I feel like that would be something that
Yeah.
would turn them off and therefore make them say, I'm not getting ready to participate in this at all. That is the
Right.
hope. But I have a lot of, as I'm talking about how it works, I have a lot of encouragement as I'm doing my work. I'm always saying to people, do your due diligence. I have a lot I do within the site offer the opportunity to indicate whether the business is a Black owned business if you
Mm-hmm.
want to indicate that. um Open to all, but the priority of understanding this was developed with safety in mind, so that the movement can be accessible to all of us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree that the language that's used on the website is probably gonna turn off somebody who doesn't agree with that
Right.
language.
Right. Absolutely.
So tell me about the cooperative land buying, because this is something that I'm fascinated with, and I hear people talk about it a lot, but I haven't seen a lot of examples of people actually doing it. Have you facilitated this to happen?
I haven't actually facilitated other than connecting people,
Uh-huh.
because somebody would reach out and say, hey, I've got this land in such and such, and I'm open to other tiny house people being there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I because people are always reaching out to me to say, hey, do you know anybody in this area? I can make those connections. So this for me, I see it a lot on like the socials, like on Facebook, where people will go post in a group and say, hey, I would like to buy land and such, but I can't afford it. If I could find, two or three other people who are also interested in this, maybe we could go in and collaborate. But that the opportunity to find those people is not always available. And so when I was
Mm.
putting this together, that's what I was thinking. Like this is that section of the site is almost like a maybe a board, like a community board of sorts, where somebody can go in and create a profile and say, hey, these are the properties that I've been looking for. I'm looking for families that are interested in homeschooling their kids. We're that
Yeah.
looking for that type of community. And so I felt like it would be an advantage to have one location so these people could collaborate. And
Nice.
however they work out the details, like I don't want to be involved in the details and the money side of it or any of that. I just want to facilitate those conversations and the connection.
Okay, so this basically just makes the connection, and then people can kind of take that as they will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I first started doing this, I was more hands-on in having the conversations, offering consultations like with property owners to help them understand how they might need to set up their property, things to consider, rental agreements, all of those things. I can provide some of those resources, but I really want this to work all by itself. If somebody wants to reach out as an add-on and consult with me, I'm absolutely open to that. But I really want I keep saying, do your own due diligence. Like these are the things to think about, and you all go off and do this well.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I'm not gonna pronounce it correctly, Ujamaa or Ujamaa.
Ujamaa, yes.
Ujamaa. So for our listeners who might not be familiar, myself included, what is Ujamaa and how is it? Well, no, I already asked how it was pronounced, and I probably did it wrong a second time.
That's okay. It is a Swahili word, and it means like sharing of, it's cooperative communities or cooperative economics.
Okay.
It's a principle from Kwanzaa, which is the celebration that happens after Christmas that a lot of Black and brown people recognize Kwanzaa. And so it is one of the principles within Kwanzaa that just speaks to cooperative economics. And that is, people coming together to work for the better good of everyone. So there's something in it for everyone. And that is what I see, especially with the collaboration of landowners and tiny house owners. Like there's a benefit for the landowner, the financial benefit that helps them, especially as I think about when I first started doing this work, I was heavily reaching out to Black farmers because over the years they have, through racist practices as well, so many of them have lost farmland. Like the statistics of ownership for Black farmers at this point is really, and I should have written down these numbers, but it's really low compared to where it was, say, in the 1940s and 60s or so. And so the cooperative economics, that thought process of, and then the other thing we find is that oftentimes young people now aren't interested in farming. And so that is also something that is affecting land, Black farmers and land ownership. I'm sure it's also affecting white farmers. But this is a way to put some money in the farmer's pocket, or the landowner's pocket, to help them. You've got all this land. You probably aren't utilizing all of it, very likely aren't utilizing all of it. So to allow a tiny house owner to park their home on the land, again, we're not asking you to sell the property, just rent the property, which brings income into to that family, to that person. And then you're providing safe parking or parking for the tiny house owner. And there's also the likelihood that the tiny house owner is interested in potentially helping on the farm. And so you could be getting some income as well as some helping hands. And so that is the cooperative piece of it, that the cooperative economics piece of it, that I think is so important. It's not it's not just for the tiny house. It's just not benefiting the tiny house owner. It is benefiting, the community overall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so, I don't have anything to add to that. But I agree that there's a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities for people who own land, who might be struggling with owning the land, to have a great relationship with people who want to live in a tiny house and don't own land. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Tiny House Decisions, my signature guide, and the resource that I wish I had when I was building my tiny house. It starts with the big decisions, which is, should you build a tiny house yourself or with help? Is a pre-built shell a good idea? Is a house on wheels better than on the ground, and what works better for you? Deciding on the overall size, deciding on whether you should use custom plans or pre-made plans, different types of trailers, and more. Then in part 2, we get into the systems, so heat, water, showers, hot water, toilets, electrical, refrigeration, ventilation, and we're only 2/3 of the way through the book at this point. From systems, we go into construction decisions, talking about nails versus screws, SIPs versus stick framed versus advanced framing versus metal framing. We talk about how to construct a subfloor, sheathing, roofing materials, insulation, windows, flooring, kitchen. I know I'm just reading off the table of contents, but I just want to give you a sense of how comprehensive Tiny House Decisions is. It's a total of 170 pages. It contains tons of full color drawings, diagrams, and resources, and it really is the guide that I wish I had when I was building my tiny house. Right now, I'm offering 20% off any package of Tiny House Decisions using the coupon code TINY when you head over to thetinyhouse.net/THD. That's THD for Tiny House Decisions. Again, that's coupon code TINY when you check out at thetinyhouse.net/THD.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even when you think about it, like backyards, I've been in a couple of backyards. And as prices increase and interest rates increase and all of those things, everybody can use some extra cash. And so this is a way, and I even think about it as I see, as I'm looking through Craigslist, and you see people who are looking for a roommate because they can't afford, the whole house, to pay
Yeah.
the mortgage or whatever. An opportunity for, as I think about it, an opportunity to rent the backyard to a tiny house owner brings in income, but it still allows you to keep your privacy. You don't have anyone in the house, which is,
Yeah.
sometimes the preferred method. But at this point, I'm kind of desperate, so I'm going to rent out a room in my house to a stranger. But if I can rent out the backyard and that person is in their home and I can be in my home but still earn income, I think that is probably, a win for everybody.
Absolutely. So, should we take a look at the app before we? I have more questions, but I feel like it would be a great time. And so for those of you who are listening, we're going to post a video of this segment on the show notes page for this episode, and I will put the link to that in the show notes. I'll say the link in the outro and the intro as well.
Thank you. So yes, and find tiny house parking is the easiest way to get here.
Find
But this is
tinyhouseparking.com. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is the main homepage. When you come to the site, you can. So it is a membership site. So the tiny house landowners, the tiny house owners, the community building and networking, and the builders are back behind a membership, a paywall.
Okay.
The tiny houses for sale or rent is the part of the site that is open to everyone. And so you can come to the site and you see here, you can search for tiny houses for sale or for rent. And so that is open to everyone. I've got events. I'm hosting monthly events here in the Charlotte area. So I list those events, and then I've got
Nice.
some tiny houses in the news. And then for someone who wants to kind of look at the site on their own, I also included a demo here. so
Great.
someone can just come to the site and see how it works. But here for the properties for tiny house parking, so you've got some listings of property owners. Poplar Creek, which is in Rutherfordton, North Carolina, nearby, the Sea Breeze community has signed up, and so you get to see the property owners. You can see their listings. They tell you about their property, how to get in touch with them, what their offering is, how much parking they have available. The person coming in searching has the ability to contact them and send them a message so that they can be in communication.
Nice.
When you go in for the profile, and I'm in as the admin, so I probably can't show you. Here we go. So if you're searching for properties for property owners, you can search, like I said, by a farm or rural area. You can search if you're looking for a backyard or urban area, an RV park or campground, raw undeveloped land, or a tiny house community. And then you could also search by city or zip code. And so all of the information is here on whatever property. You're able to see pictures of the property, see the details of the property, etc.
Fantastic.
Okay, and so then for tiny house owners that are looking for parking, you're able to come in and create a profile. All of your information about what you're looking for. I'm a current tiny house owner, the type of tiny house that you have, what rental terms you're looking for, whether your house is on or off grid, all of the details, the size of your house, how soon you're looking for it, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're able to add some, additional details about yourself, pictures of your house, all that kind of information. And then a property owner could reach out and contact this person if they were interested in speaking to them about the potential to be on their property. And then the community building and networking, again, this is the piece where it's more of like a direct, like a bulletin board, old style bulletin board kind of
Nice.
piece. So you come in and set up, and this is a sample, you come in and set up the information about yourself. So in this example, my family has been living in a tiny house for 5 years. We're interested in connecting to purchase land. And so this allows you to list articles. So maybe you want to have a discussion about, what to get to know the people that you're talking to. Post some articles and have some discussions around the articles. I saw some property available. What do you all think about this property? We can have a discussion there. And then just some overall discussions. What are your thoughts? What are your requirements for an intentional community? So this is just going to allow people to kind of to be in discussion, determine whether this is something that I'd be interested in connecting with this person further, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have a way to reach out and contact the person as well.
Nice.
And then for the tiny house builders, so you come in and you can create a profile and you list all your information. You can add a professional resume. I've asked questions like, are you a licensed GC? And if so, what year are you licensed? Do you have any tiny house certifications? What types of bills have you already completed? The number, etc. And then you also have the ability here to list, pictures of your tiny houses that you completed and all the details of that house that you built.
Nice.
And then you have the ability again to connect with that builder. You see their information. If you decide you wanted to reach out to them, you can connect with them. And then the final opportunity within the site is for tiny houses for sale or for rent. And again, you create a profile, you list all of the tiny houses that you have available. You can list all of your details, your pricing, square footage, whether it's new or pre-owned, self-built, professional built, who built it, whether it's, one of the, if it's certified, RBIA certification, NOAA certification, whatever.
Yep.
If you are able to offer financing, delivery, all of the details. This is, and then you can add, as many pictures as you'd like, and as many houses as you'd like as well. And then this one, like I mentioned, is open to members of the directory as well as members outside the directory.
Very nice. Yeah, it looks well built out, and it's, the opportunity
Thank
for
you.
people to put in a lot of details, which are important details for somebody who's either looking to buy a tiny house or looking for parking. Are you
Absolutely.
is this like nationally available, or are you focusing on, a particular area as you launch the app?
No, it is nationally available. I want to make this available to facilitate tiny house parking, especially with the focus on tiny houses for wheels nationally, because we
Yeah.
know this is where can I park my tiny house is the number one question that is a barrier to the tiny
Yeah.
house movement. And as we continue to do the work to legalize it, not everybody, like I'm celebrating 10 years in my tiny house, and not everybody wants to wait until it's all legal. Some of us are
Yeah.
living the dream now, and I want to be able to facilitate the opportunity for people to be in the movement throughout the United States as I can.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, it's probably the number one question that I get from my listeners and readers, which is, where can I park it? And it's the question that I can't really answer for anybody either.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And that's unfortunate, but I feel like this is, as I like I said, to find parking locations. I've advertised on Craigslist and all of the things, word of mouth and social, all the socials. We've had Facebook groups for that for years, and
Mm-hmm.
this designing this was me trying to be an opportunity for answering that question and helping move the movement forward.
Yeah. And I'm curious how you made the decision around who to charge, because I've seen different models. Like I know, tiny house listings, for example, I think they charge the builder to list the house, or there are a lot of different business models out there. I'm curious, how did you land on, it looks like there's a quarterly or an annual subscription for basically
Everybody.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like this. So as I was thinking through how to charge every folks,
Mm-hmm.
the property owners, if they find a tiny house, people to live on their land, they're going to be making money.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny house owners seeking parking, this is facilitating the process for them.
Yep.
Tiny houses for sale, obviously you're going to sell the house, make some money. Tiny house builders are going to make some money. um, my thought as I went into developing this is, one, I've invested in this site.
Mm.
I heavily invested in this site.
Yeah.
It has to be maintained and kept ongoing. I also facilitated this for like 3 years, just as a spreadsheet, just trying to be the help in the movement.
Mm-hmm.
And as I priced it, I tried to price it reasonably, but also with the understanding is things cost money, and so I
Sure do.
I want to be a help, but I also should be able to charge for it. Is kind of how I went through the numbers. Again, trying to be reasonable with it, but also recognizing that this is a service, and you you have to pay for service.
As the saying goes, if it's free, then you are the product.
I like that. I need to write that down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I and I oftentimes struggle with that question, but I also know that I put a lot of work into this site so that it
Mhm.
wouldn't be just a janky bootleg, site. That it is answering the question, it is providing a lot of information, it
Mhm.
is very well done, and so with that, um, there's a charge for it. It can't be
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. And so, it'll be probably mid late October when this episode comes out. Is the app, ready to use? People can go to findtinyhouseparking.com right now and sign up.
Absolutely. It is out there ready and waiting. I am doing a lot of marketing around it.
Mhm.
I had a list of about, I'm going to say 150 so property owners previously when I was doing the manual process.
Yeah.
Um, my initial thought was to put all of them in the site, but I don't want to put them in if they're not going to sign up for the membership and just
Right.
have stale information out there. So I am still collaborating with them to try to get them all signed up into the site. But yes, it is open and available now, with the understanding that it is still new, so it's got to grow. But again, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, so I can start sharing, getting this information out, because it is the question that hinders so many of us, so many people, from being able to take advantage of the tiny house movement.
How do you see this app changing the landscape in the tiny house movement?
I hope it's the magic. As I think about it, I hope it is the magic that grows the movement, that allows people to see the benefits of tiny house living, the benefits to property owners from a financial perspective, the benefits to families who get to live this dream, and how they'll be able to do well financially, with, or even have housing, because that's also the thing. They oftentimes don't have housing. So and just the opportunity to have all of this in a directory. As I launched it, I kept saying this is the thing that I wish had always been available to me.
Yeah.
And so, kind of like, being the change that you want to see. So I hope it's the
Yeah.
magic that helps us move forward and grow and be able to collaborate, throughout the country.
Nice. Looking ahead, do you have any plans or any features that you couldn't include in this first launch version that you are hoping to add in the future?
I don't right now. Obviously, I'm open to feedback, but I try to think of, um, like, my last two ads to the site were the community building and networking piece, and then
Mhm.
the tiny house builders.
Yeah.
Um, I think I tried to look at this, again, tried to look at this from what is it that I've needed within the movement, and unless somebody else comes up with something that is big that I haven't thought of. I think I thought of everything. There could be some tweaks to, the questions that we're asking, or the information that's being gathered, that people might say, it would be helpful if I could share this, or if I could know this about someone. Those types of things are small tweaks, but um, I don't at this point. I don't have anything else that I think is missing right now from the site.
Awesome. Well, I encourage
But I'm
people
open
to.
to feedback.
Okay. Well, if you're listening and you want to check it out, it's findtinyhouseparking.com. It sounds like Jewel is interested in hearing from you. Or maybe that was just an invitation for me to give you feedback.
It's both. I'm
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
interested in hearing from everyone, and I'm interested in people signing up and
Yep.
participating in the site. If you've got land, and so that's the thing, that
Yeah.
as I think about this, um, people don't,
Mhm.
obviously it can't be a community where you've got the HOA,
Yeah. Yeah.
but if you've got some land that is open and available, to support the tiny house movement, because I always say not everybody wants to live in a tiny house, but if
Right.
you've got the opportunity to support the tiny house movement, then this is an opportunity to do so, as well as make some extra money, because as we keep going into challenges and people are losing land, losing property, this for me is a creative way to mitigate that happening if possible.
I think just being connected on a platform, whether even if you have a tiny house and you already have a place to park it, it's like so many people have experienced essentially evictions or being forced to move due to legality changes. So it's probably a good idea to just
Right.
stay connected through a platform, so that way, and it's unfortunate that you have to be thinking this way, but so that you kind of have your next move in your back pocket if you need it.
I agree. And then even with us, part of the piece of it is having the ability to move if we want to. So you might be happy in your location, but decide you want to move to another state. This is an opportunity to be able to help facilitate that. um as I share some information, like I'm not doing, it's up to the property owner whether they want to have the conversation with their local city, county officials,
Yep.
or if they want to operate in the gray area, like we know, like I've basically lived for these 10 years. It is up to that property owner. And, I, again, can consult on that, but however they want to, the way that they need to proceed, that works best for them is what I'm encouraging them to do.
All right. Well, for those of you listening, I also want to point out to the other two interviews we've done together. So the first one is going to be episode 77. That's thetinyhouse.net/077. That's the interview where we talk about representation in the tiny house movement. And then the next episode that we did was 186. So thetinyhouse.net/186. And that was all about the addition that you put on your tiny house. That was a really fun conversation. And you don't see many people putting additions on their tiny houses, but as you hear from Jewel's bio, Jewel is the real deal. She's been living tiny since 2015. So, this is a real life person living in a tiny house, and you just always have so much wisdom to share.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. October 2014 is when I went and bought my trailer for my
Okay.
tiny house,
Wow.
and I started designing. So,
All right. So you're at 10 years.
I'm at 10 years,
Wow.
and I absolutely still adore my house, and I still really am um, for and engaged in the tiny house movement. I just, as you are, I still believe this is just
Mhm.
really an opportunity to reimagine housing and wealth building and all of the things. So I'm happy for the third time. Well, I need to figure out what episode number this is going to be. So maybe these are some numbers I can,
Yeah,
can go play or
I
something.
will. I don't know it off the top of my head as we talk right now. It's in the low 300s. So, you got
Okay.
70 something, 180 something, and 300 something.
Yep. The third time's a charm for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Third time's a charm. So, Jewel Pearson, thank you so much for being a guest. It was great to chat and catch up.
Absolutely. I always enjoy it. Thank you for having me, Ethan.
Thank you so much to Jewel Pearson for being a guest on the show today. You can find the show notes for this episode, including a complete transcript, links, and a video demo that Jewel did live on the interview at thetinyhouse.net/307. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/307. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow the show and share it with your friends and community. Your support helps us bring more valuable content and inspiring stories from the tiny house movement. Well, that's all for this week. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast.